Buddy, I just want to say I appreciate everyone joining. I know it's kind of somewhat on short notice for this last training before forum. And so the focus of this is going to be on mainly what's going to happen as you're presenting, as that day that you're presenting. And so at any point you have questions, feel free to, unmute and ask. So we'll go ahead and get started. All right, so everyone, welcome. And so just so you know, the forum is on the 20th to 23rd, and there's also the virtual experience. So that's the 21st, 23rd. So there's a day before that there's content, but the live virtual sessions don't start until the 21st. All right, and first we're going to kind of review over some of the resources that have been given to you. So first off, you have the NIGP presenter resource page that's on the website. And then you also have the 2023 speaker console instruction. So, if you don't know where that, if you don't know where this job aid is, or if you don't know where this resource page is, please let us know, because these recordings, for example, for this training is going to be going on that resource page. So everything's going to be on one page for you. So if you don't know where that is, please let us know. All right, and so we're going to briefly review just a little bit on the slide presentations, because we have a little bit of time in terms of when those are due. And so I have a slide too that kind of tells us, when exactly those slides are due. So one thing that we're doing in a lot of the paths is that we're starting off with a question before the session begins. And we're really trying to push this idea of collaboration before the speakers begin. And so this is an example of one of the technology questions, and this is just going to be up on the slide as people are entering. And so we're trying to get people to chat amongst their neighbors and also chat virtually. This is not a mandatory thing you have to add in your presentation, but we're just bringing this idea to everybody. And we'd like for as many of you to join us with doing this on your presentations. Again, this shouldn't take up any time of their presentation. This is something that goes on beforehand. And as soon as your time hits, then you can begin with your normal presentation. So this is an idea. All right, so when it comes to your presentation, we'd like for you to kind of create an engaging learning experience. And so one of the ways we can do that is through a lot of poll questions. And so we're going to go over later on in the presentation exactly how you can create those poll questions and some best practices to how to implement that. We're also going to be also like for you to deliver relevant content with a clear and immediate application. So for example, if your presentation is on technology or construction, that your examples deal specifically with your content. If you're dealing with more advanced content, we'd like for your examples to match that, instead of maybe going down to fundamental type, examples, things like that. So when it comes to preparing your slide deck, again, these are some points that you've already kind of reviewed. We're just kind of briefly going over them because we do have a little bit of time. We do want you to use the speaker presentation template. We'd like for to keep things simple. So try and, especially with like really long text, try and simplify everything down so it's easy for people to read. Purposeful titles, safe fonts, ensuring charts and diagrams are readable. So I think we really love the idea of charts and diagrams, but a lot of times you can have that expanded over the entire slide. That way it's really easy to see. A lot of times some people are viewing this from their phone or on a smaller PC, and they can't see that smaller text. So try and blow that up as big as you can. We also like the idea of like telling stories. Sometimes telling stories is a great introduction into your presentation. A personal story where you talk about, that relates to the topic and how you overcame a challenge, or maybe this was something that you did that, wasn't best practice, but you learned from it. I think that's a really great connection between you and your participants. And when it comes to also using transitions and animations minimally, a lot of times when you see things kind of phasing in and out, it can be really distracting. And overall, just from feedback we get from our participants, is they don't like these presentation slides that have a lot of those animations and transitions. So it's actually kind of better in most cases to probably not have those. Oh, somebody had a question? No. And down here, we kind of, sorry. We have an example of what, I think someone's off mute. Okay. So also down here, emphasize key points. A lot of times you can just kind of create like a box around certain keywords that you really want to stand out. So something you may want to add to your presentation. Also takeaways. We're going to talk about where you can upload those takeaways in the console, but That's a key part of, I think, presentations. If they can kind of take something away, that kind of helps reinforce those ideas. And also consider polls, quizzes, and videos.
Hey, Charles.
Yes.
There's one question in the chat from Victor. Can you give an example of what one of the questions might be at the opening? Just a little more guidance on how they might select a question.
Yeah, great question. So when it comes to those opening questions, you want something that's going to relate to a lot of people, and also have it really open-ended so that it's not like a single answer, so that, you know, the answer is B. Oh, it's B. Okay, good. We almost want kind of a discussion in between. You know, what's your experience been like with X? We're just going to make sure whatever that X is that most people have experience with it. You don't want a situation where you ask for, you know, someone's experience with something and only about 10% of the crowd have dealt with it. But yeah, anytime that people have experience, or, you know, what do they think is the best version of something? I think we're like opinion driven, and then a little bit of like a debate amongst the crowd. I think that's always really good. All right. And so final slide decks are due on August 6th. And so this is really important. So what happens is on August 6th is this Sunday coming up. August 7th is when the console will go live. And then once that happens, we expect there's a lot of people are going to go in and start downloading those slides. So if you, for example, if you upload your slide deck and then on August like 10th, you re-upload, then there's a good chance that a lot of people have already downloaded that presentation and they're not going to have that latest version. So we're really pushing that, have all of the slide decks up on the console by August 6th, and then 7th is when it'll go live. And again, I'm going to open up a browser to kind of show you where where you can upload these documents. And if you have any questions, please let me know. All right, so now we're going to focus on the presentations themselves. So what we're going to talk about are two different types of presentations, and depending on which type of presentation you are, there's going to be some differences. So first we have our in-person only, and then second we have our live streamed presentations. Our live streamed are going to be a combination of, you're going to have an audience in front of you, but there are also going to be cameras on you that are going to be broadcasting out your presentation to a virtual audience. And so we're going to talk about kind of the key differences on those. And so you can look at on the website, it'll tell you whether or not your session is being live streamed or not. So your presentation team. So here's who you can expect to be in the room. So when you're walking into that room, if you are a live streamed presenter, you will have a producer. So that producer is an NIGP staff. They will be the person interacting with the virtual audience, and also they can launch your polls and announce your results for polls. However, if you are in person, you will not have that producer, but you will have staff waiting for you if you're in person only. First, you'll have everyone will have a QCT team member. This is someone who's going to set your PC up, making sure it's set up with the sound or the virtual audience. And then we also have a moderator. These moderators are the ones who are going to be running up and down the aisles for any kind of questions that you may that come up. So say if you have a question that you pose to the audience, someone's going to raise their hand, a moderator is going to run down there with the mic, and they're going to ask that question in the mic. So we'll have someone taking care of that as well. Any other questions? No.
Yes, Charles, I had one because you mentioned live stream versus live stream and in person, but how, if we are not going to have a producer and our in-person session is being live streamed, then who's going to be monitoring the chat and letting us know what's going on there?
That's a good question. So I have the next couple of slides, we will talk about that. Yep. All right, so I think it's the slide after that where we talk about that. Yeah. So preparing for your presentation. So we would like for you to stay in communication with NIGP and your co-presenters. You know, for example, I think for a lot of the sessions, people are meeting up the day before. And so scheduling that time to meet up, you know, at forum is a good idea. You also need to make sure you bring your laptop and the presentation. So the QCT team is going to be hooking up your laptop. And so you're going to be launching your presentation from your PC. So I don't think we're going to have many replacements there. So make sure you have that with you. We're asking everyone to arrive 20 minutes before your presentation. Now, that should give everyone plenty of time in order to, if you say, for example, you're at a presentation and then you're going to go over to yours, because there's typically a 30-minute break in between sessions. So if you're at a session, you can attend it fully. And then there's plenty of time, I think, for you to kind of get to where you need to be for your session. And then the 20 minutes with your team in order to set up your presentation. So real quick question. So if I missed any, please let me know, but I'm looking at Victor's here. So will each session have a mic runner for the audience? Yes. Every session, whether or not they're live streamed or in person only, will have a member there who can run the mics. Connection, HDMI, that would be my guess. That's the most common one. Yep. And then is there a way for us to find out who is assigned as our producer, QTC, and moderator on the day of the session? That's a good question. I don't have the answer for that one. I'm sure that it's going to have a schedule eventually with, I know probably what your moderator and producer, your QCT team. I don't know if we'll have that listed on there.
If you go to the QCT room at Forum, usually there's a chart on the wall.
Oh, okay. Appreciate that.
With who has to be where. I don't know if that'll be the case, but it's worth checking.
All right. And so the only thing is that the awards lunch only has a break of 15 minutes. So we are asking people that if you are attending that awards lunch and you have a session right after that, we would like for you to leave that early, just so that you can still get to your session 20 minutes before. It's the only time that we don't have a full 30-minute break. And again, so you'll meet your producer, moderator, and QCT team member in the room. You're live, you're in person only. Remember, you won't have a producer, but you will have a moderator. That's the one running the mics, and your QCT team member, that's the one handling your sound and hooking you up. We'd like for everyone also to start engaging with your audience before the presentation starts. A great way to do that is that question, or maybe there's a different way you'd like to engage with that audience. Maybe start off with a conversation with them and kind of get them going a different way. That's fine too. So we also, let's practice 3 times. Again, there's 3 different ways, you can practice. You can practice in the mirror, you can practice with a colleague. And we also like to throw out the idea too, that, you can reach out to NIGP, and if you want to set up a time with us and we can observe you doing your session and presenting, and you would like feedback that way, we'd love to help you out in that way. All right, so presenting live streamed. So it's important to know that the virtual audience will see your presentation. We're not sure exactly how it's going to work yet. There's probably going to be one camera on the presentation and one on you, or it might flip back and forth, but you don't have to worry about that. The QCT team will take care of that. This is an important distinction between live streamed and in person. So stay on the stage. That's really important for live streamed, just because in order to keep you within the field view of the camera, we need to keep you on that stage and close to the podium. However, if you are in person only, we highly encourage you to just move away from the stage, go out in the middle of the crowd, walk around, really engage with your crowd. So it kind of depends on which side you are on. Each session will have a producer in the room working with the virtual audience. Again, that is the producer. That's only for the live streamed. Best practices, this is really important to acknowledge both audiences. So for example, if you're going to pose a question to your audience, we'd like for you to kind of split it, one question for your in-person and then one question specifically for your virtual audience. And that kind of includes, almost like a 50-50, and both sides are going to be included in your presentation. Yeah, it's a good question. So I'm seeing, is virtual only typing? Yes, they will not have access to audio in order to talk. So all of their interactions will be through type.
Question for you.
Yes.
When we are doing polling questions and things of that nature, and we're being live streamed, the ability for people in person will be able to go into the platform as well. So we're getting results from not just one or the other, right? It's collective of those in person and those virtually participating, correct?
I missed part of that. Sorry. So can you repeat that question? My apologies.
No worries. So if we're both live stream and in person and we're doing a poll for the audience, will both those in the session in person and those that are attending virtually be able to participate in that same poll? Will it go through, in other words, the platform to where we're getting the results of everyone? or am I
No,
going to have to gather it from two different launches, if you will?
Yeah. Yeah. Good question. So yeah. So whenever we launch those polls, that's going to go out to both your virtual audience and the in-person audience. So when they're putting in their results, it's all going to accumulate into one set of results for you.
And the instructions that we need to give them to participate, are you going to kind of clearly let us know that, or do we just simply say, go in the app and that's where it's going to happen?
Yeah. So I think right here, I kind of have a picture. I was going to review with you just a little bit on the instructions you want to give them in terms of them responding to that poll. Yeah.
Well, how about instructions for us?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, so that's this slide right here. So it's a combination of instructions for you and also what you need to tell your participants. So real quick, so on the polls, if you are live streamed and in person, participants must click on that live poll button. So right here on the right-hand side, we see kind of a screenshot of what they see. So for example, if someone is on their phone, the only way they're going to be able to participate with the poll in person is going to be through them on the app and them clicking on live poll. And so once you see the live poll is open, they're going to click that button that says live poll on the software there, and then they can participate. The polls do not show up until you hit a button that says publish, and we'll take a look at that. Presenters use.
Okay. Yeah, because see that bullet's confusing because it makes it sound like we're not, those of us that are live and also streaming at the same time are not going to have a producer in there to even start the poll for us. So we're going to have to go
Yes.
back and start it.
Yeah. So basically, so the question is, what do you do if you don't have a producer? And that's together these next bullets. So if you're in person, you will need to launch your own polls. You will not have a producer in there that will do that for you. Now, there's different options. You can, if you've got the app on your phone and you want to launch it right there as the speaker, you can do that. Or if you've got a friend, or if you have someone who's participating with you, they can log into the console for you, and then they can launch those polls for you whenever you ask for it.
Right. But Charles, what I'm saying is that first bullet is for those of us that are in person and streaming at the same time. And it's saying that the presenters have to use the phone to access the polls. So we're not going to have a producer there to help us when we're doing two separate types of audiences.
So I'm not sure I'm kind of catching that, but if you're doing the
Yeah,
live stream,
it seems like when we have two audiences and it's harder, we don't have
Right.
help.
Right.
And
Right,
we have
that's what
one
that
audience
says.
and we could do
That's-
it.
Yeah.
We do have.
yeah. So if you're live streamed, you will have a producer in there, and they're going to launch the polls for you.
Right.
Okay, but some of us are in person and live streamed.
Yeah, and so
the
in
same
that
time.
case, yeah, so I make a distinction on that. So good point. So if you were live streamed, whether or not you're live streamed or in person, so we don't have just live streamed. It's either live streamed and in person or just in person. So if
Okay.
you're live streamed at all,
Okay.
and for your title, you will have a producer in the room. That's a good point. I'm glad you brought that up, because I
Great.
think other people might be confused on that. Yeah, so
Thank you.
basically, so the only thing is, like, in person, you will need to figure out a way to launch those polls on your own. And then live streamed, yeah, as I mentioned, producer will launch polls and announce results for you. So again, so I think what's going to happen is whenever you launch, you hit that button, or you tell your producer to hit that button for you, they're going to answer the question, the participants, and they're going to see the results. The only thing is it's going to be hard for the presenter for you to see those results. So we have a mic on the side with the producer, and they're going to be able to tell you the results. So A was chosen 12% of the time, B was chosen 14% of the time, and so on.
Hey,
So they can-
Charles,
Yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to add something. So if you are in person and live stream, that producer will function as the voice of your virtual audience. So they will respond to the chats and monitor those. They will, if somebody asks a question, they'll repeat it. So they'll be engaging with you to ensure that you are aware of what the virtual audience is acting or asking. Does that help at all?
Yes.
All right. Let's go back to what you just said, that if we're a live stream / in person,
Yep.
we won't see the poll results. And we
Yes,
rely
because if
upon
you're- if you're-
and we
yeah,
rely
'cause if
upon
you're-
the producer.
I'm sorry,
Now,
go ahead, Kirk. Sorry.
you said that if we're live streamed and in person, we
Mhm.
launch a poll, we won't see the poll results. We have to rely upon the producer to tell us the results. Is that the case when we're just in person and launching a poll question? How do we see the results if we're just in person without a producer?
Yeah, so that's a good point. So basically what's going to happen is I'm assuming that you're up there and you have your presentation slide and you're clicking through the slides. And so nowhere on there is going to be the results for your polls. So if you were in person, you can pull it out on your phone and you can look at it that way. Or if you want to have a second member, like a team member who's going to come in for you, log into your account, and then they can announce the results. But yeah, so if you're in person, you're going to have to do it yourself through your cell phone or have a buddy kind of come in and help you with those results.
Hey, Charles.
That-
Yes.
It's Carrie. Let me jump in here, Kirk. So if you're in person and you don't have a producer in the room, you'll want to log into the speaker console.
Right?
The best way to do that is to either do that on your phone or have another device, either another laptop or an iPad if you have that. And that will be the way that you would launch your polls, and you will see those results in the console. Your laptop that you're using for your presentation,
Say it.
you want to leave that alone probably, but you're having another device, whether it's on your phone, you can get into the speaker console on your phone or another device. That's where you will launch and you will see the results as the person who's actually launching it. Does that make sense?
It makes sense. I mean, it takes when you're doing it, just takes the presenter away from the the key point of presenting and connecting with the audience when the presenter has to go back and look at a second device to see the results. So I'm just thinking through that. I'll put this out to all my fellow presenters. If I'm available, I will be happy to act as a second person to launch your polls for you.
Nice.
Because
I was just going to
think-
say the same thing, Kirk. I think for anyone that plans to have lots of polls,
Yeah.
maybe you need to recruit somebody to log into their phone and act as the polls
Yeah.
presenter.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. no,
And
good
you
person.
might, when you find out who the QCT person is, you might ask them.
The thing about that is, guys, the producer, you either have to allow them to log into the console as you, which is probably the easiest way. Otherwise, I have to associate someone to be the moderator for every single one of those sessions. So I get where you're coming from, and I know that that's an issue. But if you do recruit somebody, Kirk, for example, if Tara says, yes, she can come to your session and do that for you, then you would have Tara log in to the speaker console using your credentials, right?
Right. Got it.
Okay.
Okay.
So pick someone you trust, probably not Tara.
Hey, Carrie,
You want me to
Hey,
do what,
Tara.
Kirk?
Carrie, to follow up that question that Kirk raised, it sounds like the poll results will not be on the screen,
Correct.
correct?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
correct.
So that does take away a little bit, I think, to Kirk's comment, that does take away a little bit of not just the attention of the presenter, but the visual impact of the polling results, right? The audience is going to see it, they're going to hear us read it, correct?
They'll see the results on their device, whatever they're on. So if I'm sitting in the room in Dave's session and Dave does a poll, I will see the results show up on my phone. If I'm
My
sitting
device.
if I'm sitting in my home office in North Carolina watching it,
Yep.
I will see it pop up on the screen in the platform. If I'm sitting in the room, I'm not going to see it up on the screen. It becomes a whole nother AV nightmare for us to do that, because we have to have another laptop, another stream, another everything. So the best that we can do is, I mean, I'm happy that we have this polling feature. This is new this year. We haven't had this, and I'm glad there's a lot of discussion around it. But as somebody sitting in the room participating, they're going to have to see that result on their phone. And to your point, Kirk, if you aren't the one looking at it and Tara is the one looking at it, she's going to kind of be your producer and say, yeah, Kirk, the number one answer is A, or whatever it is.
I mean, I love the idea of the polls. I mean, the first time Rick used it at FAPO a couple of years ago, I thought it was great. But it does take a little bit of management, if you will.
Thank you. Appreciate the clarification.
Yep. And so the key too, I think, is, when you're in that presentation, you're ready for that poll, you may want to remind your participants to click on that live poll button. That's where they're going to access that. All right. And so whenever we have our polls set up, and then, so what's going to happen is you're going to click that publish question button, and that's when a poll question goes live. So if you log into the console now, you're not going to see this button. I suspect this button shows up once the console goes live. So it's going to be Monday. That's when you can click that green button. All right. And so just kind of the last slide after this, I'm just going to open up the console and just show you where you can upload documents and also create your polls. But if you need any assistance with anything, feel free to kind of email me when it comes to designing content in your presentation, reviewing your presentation, practicing, accepting the speaker, accessing the speaker console. Please let me know. I'd be more than glad to help. I think some of you have already had Justin reach out to you. Justin can help you as well. So before I switch off this and go to the console, do we have any other questions? Like Terry, raise your hand.
Yeah, I do have a question. I was actually typing it to Carrie, but I'll ask it for the whole group. My session is going to primarily be discussion with the audience. And so I'm wondering, I'm going to have one person acting as a moderator with a mic. Would it be difficult to get more than one mic so that my moderator's not running crazy? Realizing that mine's virtual and live streamed, I know some of the complaints last year were if the mic wasn't in front of the speaker, the virtual audience didn't get any of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Tara, this is your And the Crowd Goes Wild session, right?
Yes.
Okay, so your session is being sponsored, so you'll have a sponsor representative in the room and QCT. So you should have at least 2 people who can run mics. But you also have a producer in there, and that's our new staff member, Emily, who you guys all meet at Forum. So Emily will have a mic. One of the QCT or the sponsor representative who does your intro will have a mic. So there should be plenty of people too that can do it. This particular room is not that large. Most of the rooms are pretty manageable, unless you're in the ballroom DE breakout, and that's pretty big. So
Bless you.
that helps.
And
Whoever that was.
this is Chanda. Just one thing to add to. We are recommending for anyone helping with the questions to repeat the question that was asked in the mic. We're aware that the virtual audience did not always hear those. And so that would be something if, when you're in the session, if an audience member says a question and they don't have a mic in front of them, repeat it so that the virtual audience can hear that, please.
All right, and just key also, but if you have that virtual audience, make sure you save at least half those questions specifically for that virtual audience. All right, any questions before we move on to the console? All right, I'm gonna stop share for a second. I'll be right back.
And then what do we really need to see here?
All right, and Chris Coghill, if you're out there, I'm using your account, sorry. So I think whenever you log into the console, again, it's gonna be your name, your email address that you have with NIGP, and then NIGP 2023. And then once you're logged into the console, it'll list off the sessions that you are associated with. And so let's say that you want to upload a document or build a poll for a session. So if you look at session 1, you'll click on it. And then at the top, these are your tabs where you can do things. So documents, this is where you can upload like a YouTube video, and you can also upload your document. This is where you're going to upload your PowerPoint. Then you also have your Q&A. You may also want to direct your participants that if they have questions, that they pull those questions into the Q&A section, and the chat's more for the general chat among the participants. But this is where you'll access the Q&A, the chat, and then also the live poll. And so we can see we already have kind of 4 polls. So the other thing too I wanted to mention is that if you are going to develop polls and you have that producer, something I forgot to mention is that you want to label it or design it in a way that's easy for the producer to pull up the right poll. So 2 things we like for you to do is 1, put the polls in the order that you want to use them. So obviously the first poll, second poll, third poll, fourth poll, so forth, and also build a slide with the poll on it. So for example, what we did with these polls in the construction path is that we labeled each question poll 1, poll 2, poll 3, poll 4. And then on the slide, we have poll 1 on the slide. And so that's gonna be really easy for that producer to know which poll is needed. So if you have that producer, you're working with a buddy, I think that's good practice in order to do this anyway, just to label those poll questions so it's easy to know which poll needs to be pulled up. And you can reorder them over here once you've created them. So for example, if we needed to launch this poll, what you would do is you would click on view question. And then we have our question here. And then this is where you'd see that publish question button. Again, the console is not live, so you don't see that, but whenever, I don't think you see my mouse, but directly below where it says question results, there would be a button down there that says publish. And so you can cycle through your questions by clicking, and then you can exit when you're done. So if you wanted to create a live poll, so we're going to do is add new. So let's say we're in there here for the first time. We want to add a new poll question. We add new. We type in our question. What color is this? And then you can describe if you want it pie chart, bar graph, single response. So if you want to choose more than one, you click multiple. So here's how you add your options. So we'll say blue, add option, pink, add option, and then you would click on add. And this is kind of like your save button. Once you do this, now your poll is down here. And so if you build your polls in the order that you want to use them, they'll automatically be in the order. For example, if you want to update something or change something, just use the up and down arrows here to get them in the right order. Any questions on where you can upload things, for example, in the documents tab, or how to create those polls and so forth?
I had a question in the chat.
Yeah.
On polls, we have to give them options, like we have to give them A, B, C, D. We can't leave something open-ended like.
It's a good point. So yeah, so when it comes to the poll questions, you want to provide them with definitive answers for that, just because there's no opportunity for open-ended questions. I think a lot of times, a lot of these presentations are going to have a lot of participants. And so I think to kind of pull all that together would be a lot. So I think just giving them, 4 to 6 options there, or maybe just a true false is fine too. Yeah, but
And
you definitely want
then
to give
the other
options.
question I had is you'd made a comment about directing people to use the Q&A. Is that something that you're expecting the presenter to do in the live session? Or is that something that the producer will like message out to the group? Use this for sort of general chat, use this if you have questions for the presenter.
Yeah, good question. So we'd like for the presenter to mention to the participants use Q&A. Your producer, they're going to be monitoring the chat. And so if any questions pop up there, they will pull them out and ask them at the appropriate time. And we'll also, as producers, remind them in the chat, say, hey, any questions you have, please use Q&A. So we'll be helping on that end of things. But when it comes to that live audience, we'd like for you to kind of go ahead and let them know to use that Q&A. And this is also how they're going to, they can also submit questions through Q&A on their phone. For example, they can raise their hand, or they can just submit them right to the Q&A on the app. Any other questions? Again, so if you get in here and you're not sure how to create your polls, you get stuck, yeah, please let us know. If in terms of uploading your documents and creating your live polls, we'd love to help you if you get stuck. Don't forget uploading your PowerPoint slide. That's due Sunday, because Monday console goes live. We want to have all the PowerPoint slides in there. when things go live. And I think as of right now, we're missing a big chunk of you guys to go ahead and upload those PowerPoints. All
Do you
right, so we have any-
prefer that be in its native PowerPoint format or saved as a PDF document as an upload?
That's a good question. Yeah. So I think we, just for an ease of use, I think, and from a data standpoint, PDF always works best when it comes to uploading the PowerPoint slides. Yeah, great questions. A lot of the things that you guys brought up, I might not have mentioned, so I appreciate that.
Casey had a question about possibly trying to use like a word cloud. I know you guys said your virtual audience is going to see our presentation. Are they going to be limited to only being able to see the PowerPoint presentation? Or if we had some word cloud things maybe loaded on our PC, would we be able to pull that up and replace the PowerPoint? Or is that going to get too dicey for your AV requirements?
Yeah, so what's going to happen is they're going to hook up your PC and you're going to open it up, and then they're going to, so I think they're going to be sharing your screen. I believe that's the case there, Carrie, but I think you should be able to switch out of the PowerPoint slide and onto a word map. I think, as you mentioned, I don't see there being an issue.
No, the feed, once we connect your laptop to the feed, whatever you pull up on your laptop is what they're going to see. So be careful of that, right?
So the question is, do we have internet connection, right?
Yes,
Because-
you do. Mhm.
Okay.
All the rooms have Wi-Fi. There's no hardwired. So there's that to keep in mind. But yeah, Tara, if you want to jump between your PowerPoint and something else, you can certainly do that.
So could you bring up the poll on another window and flip it in?
I don't know the answer to that. I'd have to ask that question.
Okay. Just trying to confuse it.
Thank you. Victor did ask about the PowerPoint. So I think my opinion is, and Justin and I talked about this, Charles, I don't know how we want to do it, but I know the instructions said a PDF of it, but some people have a hard time reading those little tiny slides with the notes on the side. We've had a couple people who have reached out telling us that they have some visual issues. So my recommendation is to load the actual presentation and then let them download notes pages if that's what they want to do.
Yeah, sounds good. Yeah, so Victor has a good point too. So embedding your videos in PowerPoint. So what you do is you click insert, then insert video. And then you would do is you'd put your, say like a YouTube link, you put that into the link section, and then it'll embed that video. Doesn't take up a whole lot of data because it's just basically linked. It goes right to the video. That's a good suggestion. And if you have any troubles with, because I know on the tech side, we have some videos in those presentations. If you have any kind of issues with adding a video that you want, yeah, please let us know. Yeah, go ahead, Lourdes.
I assume that there's no issue with the what type of computer you have. I have Apple. So as long as I bring the adapter, I should be okay, right?
Yeah, there shouldn't be any problem.
Thank you.
Those Apple users. I'm just kidding.
Hey, careful.
I just want to share, I think Victor's suggestion is actually not to rely on the like YouTube link, but to actually download the video if possible and have it saved on your computer so that you don't have to rely on internet to like buffer if you click on a link. So if it's something that you can actually download and house on your computer's drive, you're going to have better access to it.
Yeah, just kind of watch out too. I think the size of your PowerPoint can be quite big, but if it's just gonna be on your machine, that could be a good strategy. All right, I think we'll go ahead and turn it off. Again, after this, if you feel there's any kind of questions that you want to email us, please let us know. I appreciate everyone stopping by. I look forward to seeing everybody at Forum. Bye,
Thanks,
everybody.
everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks.
See you
Great.
soon.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you.